So welcome back, everyone. Moving into the last stretch of this event, and this part is a little long. I know that it's 2.5 hours, but I'm sure we will have very interesting discussions, so it will probably be worthwhile staying on. So the next session here is what we call the hot topic presentations, and actually that's a bit misleading because the whole event is based on the requests and demands and ideas from mostly the member states monitoring agencies and also some other public sector bodies. But this is the place where we place the presentations that most people have asked for. So, and the hot topic of this year is drums, well, accessibility testing. So not something very new maybe, but always equally interesting and important. And we have very interesting speakers and topics during this presentation, this session. So we are starting with how we can do better evaluations, presented by Hidde de Vries, who is a web standard specialist at the Dutch government. Then we will go on to more of the balancing between manual, automated, and AI testing in the accessibility lifecycle, and that is presented by Shilpi Kapoor, who is the founder and CEO of Barrier Break and 24/7 accessible documents, and also newly appointed to be the G3 ICT chair. And then we will hear about accessibility in the code generator age, presented by Wilco Fiers, who is the product owner of Axe-core and axe-linter at Deque. So if we have Hidde here, I think he is the one first out. Yes. I do not see you, but
Hello, I am here.
it's good. Now I hear you and see you. Welcome.
Excellent. Hello, everyone. Yeah, I wanted to talk to you about how we can do better evaluations. And that is all to answer basically one important question. Next slide, please. And that is this product accessible? That is a question that I think all of us are very used to answering. Maybe as having as well, if we work in government, we want to know because we want to meet this comply with the Web Accessibility Directive, right? So this is a question that many accessibility professionals will have and be answering quite often. And we have a lot of ways to kind of try and answer that question. Next slide, please. We have a bunch of different standards. The WCAG standard, Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, not EM, that was a typo on my part, sorry. And then the EN 301549, the European norm, and also Section 508, they all kind of say something about how accessible a thing is. They can help you to find out. Now, to streamline that a little more because there's a lot of information inside of WCAG. There is a methodology as well that is produced by a couple of people that were close to the people that made the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, WCAG. Next slide, please. So that's the WCAG EM methodology. There's a bunch of useful things in there. So it explains kind of what you need to know before you start doing an evaluation. It helps you find out sort of who you can work with, what kind of information you need to take in. And then it kind of helps you define what a report should look like, because you will be producing a report quite likely. But most importantly, it's called an evaluation procedure. And that is a 5-step procedure that takes you through all the steps that let you do an evaluation of a full website. It usually involves a lot of different steps. And this helps you kind of go through that. And in the methodology, you can find some information too about like different kinds of websites and also how they impact what an evaluation works like. Because like if it's a smaller one, you might need a smaller sample set and things like that. So we'll let you define a scope, set a baseline, and then most importantly, we'll let you find a sample of your website so that you don't have to look at every single page, but you can still say something meaningful about a whole page. And the sampling procedure there is really important because it makes sure that you are, in fact, looking at the whole website. And there are requirements around, you cannot just leave parts of it out. You've got to kind of cover the whole website through this methodology. And yeah, for the sampling, there are different types of samples that are in WCAG. So first you do a structured sample, then you add a random sample of web pages and states that you also include. And then you also make sure that you actually including complete processes. So if one part of the process is part of your scope, then every part of that process should be. As soon as you include one part of a process, then you need to include all the other parts as well. This is all to make sure that we're talking about complete products when we are auditing. Now, at the Dutch government, we are using this methodology quite a lot. Next slide, please. We've asked almost 9,000 websites that we are responsible for monitoring to use this methodology and to come up with a report and tell us what the results were. And then we've given them a nutrition score, like it's done for food, A, B, C, D, and E. A means you fully meet WCAG, and B and C mean that you have done your reporting or planned for it, and D and E mean you've not really started yet. And with this dashboard, we give insight into what the state of accessibility is across the whole country. And it's good to have an objective methodology because that means that everyone's kind of going through the same steps to end up on this thing. Now, for this project and also for a project that I'm working on to redevelop the WCAG EM into WCAG EM 2.0, I've been talking to a lot of people that have been making these reports to ask them, is there anything you like or hate about doing these reports that we could potentially improve? Next slide, please. And one of them that really stood out is people want to evaluate more than just websites. It makes sense because the Web Accessibility Directive talks about more than websites. It talks about apps as well. Another thing that people said is they want to describe issues. They don't want to describe success criteria and then list issues for each. So they want to kind of swap that around. It might sound like the same thing, but they want to center problems in their report so that someone who receives the report can go and work on the problems. They don't really care which success criterion it falls under. That is interesting and necessary meta information, but the issues are central in a lot of people's evaluations, is what I found talking to a lot of people. So that was something that we maybe want to take into account. And then the third one was sampling. People had all sorts of thoughts on that as well. And then next slide, please. We are now working on WCAG EM 2.0. We, that is me and my colleague Jeroen at Logius at the Dutch government, and Steve Faulkner of Tetralogical, who are a consultancy that help with all sorts of different accessibility questions, including doing these kinds of audits or assessments or evaluations. And we're trying to make it better in the respects that we mentioned earlier. So for people who are wanting to look at apps, but also clarified a lot of the language, made it more clear where we could find it. And we've just been updating like a lot of links that were outdated because the previous version is about 10 years old, I think more than 10 years old. So yeah, some of the links had died in between. Next slide, please, because I'm really here to tell you about this so that you can give your feedback. You can give that feedback in a lot of different ways, but also on our GitHub. So I'll share the link to that with you all. But we're really looking for feedback. We'd love to know what you love or hate about doing evaluations and how we can make your process kind of easier, because we're in the middle of working on this 2.0 version and we're hoping to release a first draft sometime this year. But thanks for your attention. I hope I'm not over time because my timer didn't work.
Well, you did a perfect presentation. Thank you, Hidde. And thank you for also sharing the link. I don't have it, so if you could share it in the chat yourself, that would be awesome. So that was our first presentation on the hot topics, and now we are welcoming Shilpi Kapoor to talk to us about the accessibility testing or AI testing in the life cycle and finding the balance between manual, automated, and AI. And I will stop sharing.
Can you all see me? I'm assuming you can and hear me.
Yes.
Fabulous. So I think it's good afternoon in some parts of the world, good evening in India, and good morning if you're sitting in the US like Rachel. So firstly, Susanna, thank you for organizing the Web Accessibility Directive session. I think last year I was there in person, and this time I am here online, and it is always a pleasure to be a part of everything that you do. So I think before I actually start on my presentation, I just wanted to welcome all of you as the chair of G3ICT. I think it's brilliant to see the community come alive. And I think year on year, we are seeing a difference. So kudos to everybody doing this. Susanna, you for bringing us all together. And with that, let me dive into, taking some of the things that Hidde spoke about and adding it into the conversation. But I think the key that I'd like to talk to everybody about is finding that balance between manual testing, automated testing, and AI testing. I don't know how many of you know, but my last 25 years of working in the accessibility world has been about manual testing. I've been a major proponent for manual testing personally, and my organization, Barrier Break, has been one of those organizations that does manual testing for a large number of customers. But over the last couple of years, we've obviously been seeing the shift of, wanting to do accessibility at scale and wanting to look at accessibility from a very different lens. We've started to see very early on that automation was something that a lot of organizations were accepting. But the question that always came up was, what is that balance that you strike? And in the last, let's say 2 years, we've seen so much of the AI conversation come into the picture that I think all of us are really wondering, where do we go from here? When we listened to Hidde earlier on, he was talking about having a strategy. And we know a lot of organizations just take a sample size and look at a representative sample of the pages or certain user flows that are very critical to their website or their application or their mobile app. But what we do realize is that, being on the other side of a consulting house, lots of organizations just come and get that much of the content made accessible. And very often, there are lots of other pages and all which are never touched. But the thing is, when all of us give an audit report, we'll end up talking about these pages that we have identified, whether we've identified individually or we've identified together with these organizations. And I think that's where a lot of bias starts to kick in, because it is also about how organizations are looking to achieve accessibility. So I think over the last couple of years, with all of the automation that has come out, we obviously see people leaning towards automation, but only automation is surely not the way forward, like all of us know in this room. We all know that it catches about 30 to 40% of the errors. It's really difficult to go beyond that. You can find issues for people, but you cannot definitely give an answer whether it's a pass or a fail. There is a lot within accessibility that we need to do with the human. So I honestly believe that accessibility solutions of the future are going to be technology solutions, but they are going to be managed and the decision makers are going to be humans, right? Whether it's AI or whether it's algorithmic, automation that we see. So let me talk about the way I see it. I think for every organization out there, the first thing that I see is that the automated tools are very often not getting to the entire teams that need to have access to these tools. We talk to so many organizations where the developers do not even have some of these tools with them, right? And they just do not know that they can actually solve 30 to 40% of these errors before they even take it out to the world. And I think that's the first step that automated can do very well. Automated can help all of us look at, how do we look at a representative's go beyond a representative view? And how do we look at, sorry, I just lost my Zoom for a second, and I'm back. And how do we actually take large websites, large applications, and how can we look at those repetitive problems that sometimes will become, and most of the time, in my opinion, will become a teachable moment for the developers of not making those mistakes again and again. So I think that's the first cut that we've got, right? And I think that is something where we must use automation, broad-based, large scans, identifying issues. To Hidde's point, I honestly believe developers want to see issues by the issue type rather than the success criteria. And I think it's so easy for all of us to put it together. And we've done that in our tooling, and you can go and check it out at Ali now. But the reality for us is that when you work with tooling, you need to make it easier for developers, designers, content creators to be able to actually go in and implement this learning and make those teachable moments so that they can overcome those challenges. So that's where automation comes in at scale before you even get to manual testing. The next that we can look at is a combination here, where according to me personally, I prefer going down the manual test route first. And then AI is one of those things where based on what is the tooling that you find, what is it that gives you a robust answer when it comes to using AI? It's very easy to say AI is something that you can use to look at object detection and help write an image description. But really, are you going to go and look at 40,000 of those issues? So how do you make AI effective enough to look at that, to be able to detect the probability, to give you a confidence score so that they know what is it where they need to spend their time, and something with a higher confidence they might be able to pass without having a human in the loop out there. So I think AI is going to be initially, according to me, I don't think it's going to be across accessibility, all over. It's going to be for certain ideas that AI can do well. Like for me, I think language detection, and especially in Europe, where we have so many languages that there are on websites, language detection, where we have language apart, easily identifiable, very easy for a developer to miss. Those kind of things we should use AI for. We should use it for image descriptions. We should use it for captioning. And I think that is really where it becomes interesting to use AI for certain areas, but my personal opinion is AI is yet not ready to do an entire automated test for you. So that's where you use these AI components. Now let's come to the part that I honestly think is the heart of accessibility. It's testing with people with disabilities. Testing with manual testers who understand accessibility and who can get to where truly the problem lies. And I think this is something that, yes, we will see AI do parts of it, or even automation do parts of it going forward. But I think this is the step we all need to embrace. Now, this step is where we find that organizations are struggling. They're struggling because there isn't enough knowledge. They're struggling because there aren't enough professionals. They're struggling because of the quantum of these websites and applications out there in the world. And I think that is why, we need to find this balance. So, I'd love to talk to all of you from time to time. Reach out to me on LinkedIn. I know we're going to be short of time, and I'm sure Susanna is going to be waiting out there to tell us that it's time for the session to get over. But what I would love for you all to do is to start getting into a dialogue with each other, right? Of how much manual, where can you use it? What tooling can you use? There isn't necessarily only one tool out there in the world. All of us use multiple tools at all given point of time. So how do you make that combination available for the automated tooling? How do you find those different AI models that you can use within your organization? And if you have certain organizations that you are willing to use tooling off, because I know that the AI conversation is very different for organizations. They're not going to allow every AI model into their organization. We're going to have to pick, we're going to have to choose, we're going to have to find the models that work well for us. And along with that, we're going to have to supplement it with manual. So, think about all of these things, 3 buckets, and think about that framework and how you're going to modulate it. And if you'd like to have a chat more in detail, do reach out to me on LinkedIn, and would love to just have a conversation about how you're doing it and how you can better that process. And with that, thank you for hearing me.
Thank
Susanna?
you very much. Thank you very much, Shilpi, for sharing that with us. And now we will move on to Wilco Fiers from Deque. He will talk about accessibility in the code generator age. And because it's you, I have let you share your screen. Nobody else is allowed to do that. But this is a very special, only for you. Take it away.
Much appreciated. Let me make sure I can dismiss this. Okay, so I love that previous session, don't you? I think AI, we all know the potential, the boasts, the promises that have been made about AI. And I think we all know that these tools, while incredibly useful, have their problems. What I don't think people are quite aware of is how incredibly powerful these tools have recently gotten. GitHub published a study last year that showed that 40% of codes, new code submitted to GitHub, like people that used AI in some form or another, was actually just plain AI generated code, unedited, no changes made to it. The number of that is just going up. And that creates a problem for the accessibility field, something that I don't think enough people have talked about yet. With so much code being AI generated, how are we possibly going to keep up testing this code? Right now, the tools we use require a human to either go in and run it, but a lot of accessibility testing can't be done with tools, so you require humans to look at it. If code gets written and more code gets automatically written by AI solutions, how are we going to keep up? I think the answer to that lies in educating these AI systems to do more accessibility work. On my screen is a project called V0 that got fairly popular last year, which is able to, with just a little prompt, generate all sorts of websites. I'm sharing my screen. This is just our homepage of V0 by Vercel, showing all sorts of different fully AI generated prototypes of different kinds of websites. I picked one of them a couple of weeks ago to just show you what this looks like when you run accessibility tools on it. This is a little shopping cart kind of thing where you can order different meals from within a restaurant. It's got all sorts of buttons. It's got all sorts of images. It's a pretty complex piece of work, fully automated with AI. And if you run an accessibility checker on this is the accessibility checker. 2 things stand out at me here. Firstly, that it's got a bunch of accessibility issues, but also that it doesn't have 1,000 of them. So this is by no means a poor experience for people, but it is not a good experience either. And I think that's where AI sits today. These tools are trained on data that isn't necessarily the most accessible, but it also isn't the worst in the world. But these tools by themselves cannot generate accessible code. And we've seen from things like overlays that if you run AI solutions to try to fix things on top of that, they're gonna make those mistakes. So what's key here is that accessibility as our industry, that we figure out how to incorporate our solutions and our education and all of these lessons that we've been trying to teach developers, that we start to teach this to these AI solutions. And one way we could go about this is through something called the Model Context Protocol. Don't worry, this is going to get slightly technical, but you can forget the details here. Model Context Protocol, it's a plugin into an AI solution. I have here my code editor with that same project loaded up. If I tell it to scan localhost 3000, that is just where this website is on my computer. If I scan it for accessibility with this MCP plugin enabled, what that will start doing is it'll analyze the page in the background. I need to give it permission to do that. I can collapse this. The details are not that relevant. And it'll find accessibility issues. It'll come up with a to-do list of things to do. It immediately found some accessibility things that it needs to fix. And it'll work through these issues. It'll scan through my code base, finding all of the accessibility problems. And one at a time goes about suggesting a solution to this. One of the problems that it identified is that buttons don't have a name, and the way it fixed it is by adding ARIA label to it. This is fully live. I'm not prompting anything other than find accessibility issues and fix it. And through solutions like these, we're able to educate for the AI solutions in how to do accessibility well. We need to enable these tools to run accessibility scans. We need to inform these tools on how to fix accessibility issues intelligently. And key to this solution is that this puts code solutions in front of developers that can get to approve, accept, or undo a particular change or make corrections so that we keep the human in the loop while leveraging the power of our existing accessibility solutions in a way that AI can use as well. And that is all I have. It looks like it wants another scan to verify. Isn't that cool? It completely, while I was talking, fixed these issues. It ran a scan to find out if there's anything else. Found a couple more issues, correcting again. Running another scan. Let's see if it comes up clean. Unfortunately not. When I ran this yesterday, it was able to complete this in 2 runs, but I'll stop here. Thank you very much.
Still a very good demo, Wilco. So thank you for that. And I think we all can see how.
One more thing, I really do need to emphasize this because otherwise you will say it. This is a solution by Deque, but other vendors have similar solutions as well. So this isn't just us doing this. There's a lot of organizations are working on solutions like that to incorporate accessibility directly into AI.
Thank you. Thanks again, Wilco. I think that was, even if you didn't succeed 100%, I think the message went through very well. And these are exciting things that I think many of us have tried to play around with lately just to make sure that we understand what happens, which I personally don't, but it's amazing when it works. So now I would like to ask, we are slightly not super on time with this panel, but very interesting presentations from all of you. So I wanted to ask you about except maybe for AI, I don't know how much we talked about that 5 years ago. I really don't remember, but we have had this legislation for 5 years, and it feels to me like we are still here talking mainly about the same things. And this is no criticism to anyone, of course, but it feels a little bit to me like the community is not really moving super fast forward. So what do you have any kind of a tip or something that would really significantly change? And don't just say AI, because we know that will change many things. But if you are a little bit more specific, what could really make a difference to the accessibility profession or the people who try to make their website accessible, or kind of this whole area? Shilpi, do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I think it's going to come down to education, Susanna. I think that is the biggest need of the hour, right? For all of us. I don't think it is anything else. And I think it is about ensuring the newer technologies that are coming out are thinking accessibility first, right? We've always been playing catch up as an industry. How do we get to it before rather than later? And I think those are the 2 things that we all need to spend our time and effort on.
Mm-hmm. And Hidde, what do you think? What can we really do to make things change or go faster? Will the WCAG EM be the game changer that changes everything?
It will not. I think there's no one solution, and a lot of us will have to do a lot of different things to kind of make things go faster. Um, I still think there's a lot of value in being very clear about what actually needs to change so that people can actually do the work. And that is something that within our field, I think we are increasingly getting better at, like describing, just like with accessibility problems, you can ask an AI to tell you what to fix. But we've also gone better at like human to human to make that more clear and make it more about here's what you can do to change it. And that is something that I hope to see in WCAG as well, where we can just encourage people to write down what the problem is rather than say, your site has now been classified as bad. It didn't pass the thing. You would instead go, here's 10 things you need to fix in order to get a green sticker or something like that. So yeah, I'm hoping we can get more better at sort of talking to each other about what needs to improve. And yeah, maybe some people can use AI with that as well, for sure.
So that's very, very good points. And Wilco, not only technology will probably help, but what else policy-wise, something else we can do to change?
I think education is critical. And I don't necessarily mean just the technical side of things, and which is plenty of important, but we're getting pretty good at building tools that can educate people about issues where they need it instead of well in advance. I think education on the importance of accessibility, education about disabilities, developing cultural awareness of what do people need, uh, an appreciation of differences within people, I think is a key to drive accessibility forward. Like unless people understand that this matters to humans, I don't think things will move. Otherwise, it remains this small group of people that has always more to do. There's never enough of us. There's never enough hours in a day. We need more people to understand why this matters. I think that's where we should put, well, where I'd love people to put more time and effort in.
So very, very basic awareness and education, and for all of us, kind of changing society. We also got a comment or question around that. That's kind of technology will not fix accessibility. We need to change society, which is I think we all agree on, but it's kind of a philosophical question that we may not be able to fix in or respond to in a short time wise. So we are here to celebrate the Web Accessibility Directive, and we are, as we all know, we are also having the European Accessibility Act now. So this legislation has been around for 5 years. And do you think legislation is obviously a tool, but are there more legal requirements or more standards or more technical things? Is that what we are looking for, or is it rather something else? Because we have had during the day, why is there not more penalties towards public sector authorities? We need to make it more strict. We need to have a bigger stick and all of that. It kind of comes back a lot of those ideas. So I want to see how you, because you're all kind of industry somehow, even if it is now with the government, but still very kind of close to industry. So what's your thought on this? But kind of not specifically carrot or stick, but really, can the laws and policies, is that where we should try to change things, or is it more other ideas? What do you think, Hidde? You are muted.
As a government employee, I think laws and policies are fantastic. No, I think they are. I mean, they are in a way. Like we do see that they trigger a lot of people to kind of start working on accessibility. That dashboard that I showed earlier, we know that there are a lot of people who want to be on the dashboard with a green sticker rather than a red one, and like it kind of encourages people to do it, to do the work. But to get actual accessibility fixed, yeah, I agree with Wilco what he said earlier, that we need education and like actually look for it in other places. And you also need people within teams that are actually aware of accessibility and kind of work on it from their own like driven them by themselves to kind of do this work. But the laws really help. Even the people who want to do the work, their manager will now allow them to, because the manager above their manager has to follow the law and like get the compliance department on at their desk. So I think, yeah, really important to have the laws there. And I think what has made a huge impact, and the EAA we're already seeing like that's also helping a lot, just to have some kind of stick and also some kind of carrot.
Yeah, but we're still missing the authoring tools requirements, right?
Yeah, I wanted
So,
to add to that authoring tool requirements. We need some more of those.
yeah, another next generation of legislation in the EU, I hope. So, Wilco, what's your thought? Policy, legislation, technology, where do you want to see this?
I think the legislation is critical. But one thing that jumped out at me immediately is that policymakers want to do it without it costing any money. And that's the part where I go, well, how then? Because like there's so much software that needs to be changed. How are we gonna afford all of that? Where are we gonna get the people that need to do all of the testing? Like I think if we're serious about this, it costs money. It's all nice to say that accessibility doesn't need to cost anything extra, except that if you are rebuilding a system to be more accessible, it's going to cost money and somebody needs to pay for that. And that's again where there's a cultural component to that. If we think this is genuinely important, we ought to fund it. We're not going to change billions of euros worth of software for no money. That's just not how it works. And then the last thing I want to highlight is something that I think is underappreciated, even within the accessibility field itself, is research. There just is not enough funding for research into accessibility. I don't think we thoroughly, properly know what we can do about accessibility. How do we make this better? What are the most effective tools to use? And then where are the gaps? We need more research into these spaces. I think universities ought to have more funding in that direction too.
Thank you for raising that. I couldn't agree more. and really in standardization, it makes me crazy that we are still basing a lot of what we do on, I don't know, myths, ideas, guesses from many years ago. A lot is not really based on research. So that is, I think, a genuine and basic problem that we have in the whole community. So Shilpi, what's your view on legislation, policy, technology?
I think all three are needed. I don't think that's a doubt. But I think what we really need to do is we need to make accessibility cool. I don't know how we need to do that. But we need to get everybody involved, right? Right from children down to, developers, down to product owners. And we need to find a way to really make us stand out. When we all talk about instances that you use this technology, you're using word prediction, why don't you realize it's an accessibility thing? But it's not getting across. So how do we go out and do that, I don't know, that big bang thing in the world that we all come together with, and kind of make it cool for the rest of the world? Because the next generation is about that. They have that vibe approach. They want the code to be. They want to be able to play with things. They want to be able to work with things. They're very different from us as a generation. And I think if we want to go future forward, we need to take on some of that generational vibe and bring that into the accessibility world while we work with government, while we work with legislation, while we work with the stick. But we've been working with the stick for so long, right? And yet we're all seeing movement, but not enough movement. So I think I don't know how to make it cool, but I'd love to find a way to make it cool.
Probably one of the young people need to make that shift. not my generation, at least. We won't be able to do that. We just can't. But I agree with you. I once said on stage in the US that we need to make accessibility sexy, and then I got a formal complaints. So so I'm not allowed to do that, which is why I always do it. So but I do agree that is what is needed, and I do have some hopes for the young generation, because I think they are much more engaged and much more interested in inclusion and things than I remember from my generation being. So I have my hopes that maybe we do see a little bit of a society shift. We have a question from the audience here. If AI-powered tools can fix not accessible code, will that not lead to developers relying on that instead of learning how to write accessible code right away? Wilco, do you want to respond to that?
Yeah, I don't think developers are writing code at all for a lot of things. So I think that's the assumption we need to get away from. AI is writing so much code these days. We need to get these tools to write accessible code. As for, is it better to just educate developers instead of giving them tools? I think you need both. I don't see how you can do, like, people make mistakes. Even the most competent accessibility engineer in the world makes mistakes and is going to miss things. So I think you need both. And the really good thing about good tools is that they can tell you about things at the time you need them and give you the information right as you need them, so that you don't necessarily need to know absolutely everything about accessibility, because you can't. Nobody can. The field has gotten far too complex for that. Nobody knows ARIA off their top of their head, for example. It's just not a thing anymore.
Yeah, and just the time spent on, oh, I think I made a mistake. I need to go look in the EN 301549 200-page PDF to see if I can find what to do with that. So really making it more kind of on the go, of course, is much more efficient, to say the least. Hidde, did you want to add something to that?
Yeah, I think everyone has needs to learn it somehow, and if some people find it helpful to do that through AI, that's fine. And if they don't, I think that's also fine. I think everyone needs to learn, either learn accessibility or find some way to outsource it. I am a little skeptical that they can outsource it properly to AI. I'm worried that there might be mistakes in there, and then they wouldn't be able to establish what the mistakes are. Like the issue of hallucination. So if a tool tells me, hi, I fixed your problem, and I haven't gotten the expertise to know whether they are right or not, then that does create a problem. And in the end result will have to be that it ends up being accessible and fixed. So we'll always still need the knowledge, whether we use tools to support the knowledge or not.
Yeah, an idiot with a tool is still an idiot, right? So, and also I think that goes for AI as a whole, that people sometimes just believe whatever. That's not just for coding, but for any information people use AI for. So that's hopefully a maturity thing that will maybe not go away, but people will learn and AI will become better. I hope, at least in the future. So we had another question here. If there is a united attempt from the EU, I guess the Commission, to provide free open source tools and SaaS services for automated accessibility scanning and manual auditing, budget should be spent on fixing issues, not detecting a lot. And a lot public bodies waste a lot of money on quote unquote useless commercial services. I don't know if you agree that they're useless, but so the question is about the EU providing a tool. I remember from the transposition phase, the negotiation phase, that we also discussed that, and if you are close enough to the bureaucracy, I don't think you think that the EU should solve this. But what's your take on this? You are all, or at least Wilco and Shilpi, kind of tool makers. Is there room for something more official, a formal thing, or would you better leave it to the market? Very quickly, we only have 1 minute. Shilpi.
So I think there is merit in something coming out, but I think instead of the governments, I think we need a unity in all of the corporates creating all of these AI tools, right? And we need them to come together and build accessibility into their learning profiles right from the start. Just imagine if Anthropic and OpenAI and everybody started to do the same thing. So I think I would lean towards those organizations rather than the governments looking for a solution, because I think governments are always going to run out of funds at some point or the other, and that's going to become an even bigger problem.
Yeah, but it's an interesting, I think the idea to have kind of, you get the tool, but you need to do the fixing yourself, then that kind of plays the problem where it should be, and not kind of spending too much time on monitoring, which is always have seemed like a bad idea from my side. Wilco, do you have a one sentence ending message on that one?
I mean, I think governments are doing monitoring, right? They are offering free monitoring that's what the monitoring agencies do. So I think that exists. Should governments build their own tools? No. It is really hard to do that well. You're gonna get badly maintained tools if you don't thoroughly fund it. There's not a lot of people in the world that know how to do this well.
But there are a couple of government-funded tools around still for some of the monitoring, but definitely they don't have the resources as the commercial ones. So, Hidde, did you have a last word?
No, I agree. It will be hard to find the people that can build the tools in governments. It can be done, I guess, but yeah. No more final thoughts on that. I think I agree with what Wilco said.
Okay, perfect. So thank you very much for sharing your knowledge and experiences, and for the demo by Wilco. So it was worthwhile letting you share the screen. So thank you for that, and thanks for also responding to all the questions, and thanks for the questions received.